Inside a dark, eerie chamber, EJ drops to his knees, crying out that he doesn't deserve this fate, insisting he's done nothing wrong. Out of nowhere, a mysterious woman shoots him and shoves him out of a plane. Even with a wound in his head, EJ suddenly opens his eyes again. To understand how he got here, we need to rewind 7 years earlier. At that time, EJ was heading to an important job interview with a top company, until a man suddenly ran across a busy street and was struck by a car. EJ rushes to the man's side, but the stranger dies while holding onto EJ's arm, leaving him deeply shaken. Later at the interview, still reeling from what just happened, EJ can't focus or answer the questions properly, causing him to fail the interview. Without securing that opportunity, EJ graduates saddled with heavy student debt and has no choice but to take low-paying jobs like food delivery and waiting tables. EJ's family isn't in a position to help him. His father passed away long ago, and his mother works as a janitor, having already sacrificed everything to support his education. Despite this, EJ never stops sending applications to companies, but rejection after rejection piles up, and he fails to secure a stable career. After 7 exhausting years of part-time work, EJ finally gets another chance with an interview at the same major company. This time, interviewer Taeyu is impressed by EJ's resume, and EJ leaves with a glimmer of hope. But his optimism is crushed when he gets a call from a friend who tells him the worst news: every penny they had invested with another friend has vanished because that person disappeared. EJ races to the friend's apartment, pounding on the door in desperation, but no one answers. Since all of that money represented his life savings, EJ loses control, furiously smashing the apartment door with a fire extinguisher until he collapses to his knees, overwhelmed by despair. Before long, the police arrive, and EJ is taken to the station for damaging property. He begs them to arrest his friend instead, but the officers explain there's nothing they can do. Losing money in a failed business deal isn't considered a crime. That evening, EJ seeks comfort from his girlfriend, Jisoo, but he's crushed when he sees her step out of a car, holding flowers from another man. After the man leaves, EJ approaches her, and she immediately notices the smell of alcohol on him. She reminds him that work has been scarce lately and tries to give him an envelope of money. But EJ sees it as charity and realizes he's become nothing more than a burden. Convinced their relationship has no future, EJ ends things with her on the spot. After leaving Jisoo, EJ returns to his apartment only to face yet another blow. The landlord has evicted him. To make matters worse, the landlord keeps his deposit to cover the months of unpaid rent. All of EJ's belongings have been tossed outside into the pouring rain, and he scrambles to salvage whatever he can. With barely any space to protect his things, EJ spends the night on the ground beside them, and by morning much of what he owned has been ruined. As if that weren't enough, he receives a message from the company saying he failed the interview. Completely broken, EJ has another emotional collapse before deciding he can't take it anymore. He ends his life in the middle of the city, ignoring a call from his mother in the process. Darkness surrounds him, until he suddenly opens his eyes and finds himself inside a private jet. EJ catches his reflection and panics. His face is completely different. Just then, he notices the mysterious woman sitting across from him. In her hands is his farewell letter, which she sets ablaze with a flick of her fingers before removing her sunglasses to reveal glowing red eyes. In an instant, EJ is transported to a nightmarish realm, a bleak chamber surrounded by a crimson sea, with grotesque creatures clawing their way up a tall central tower. The woman finally reveals her identity. She is Death, and she has dragged him here as punishment for mocking her gift. Seizing him by the throat, she hurls him over the edge, where swarms of monsters reach out as he plummets into the sea. Dozens of twisted creatures wait for him in the water, and as EJ crashes down, he suddenly awakens back on the plane. Death is there as well, calmly explaining his punishment. EJ will be forced to die 12 more times. His soul will inhabit the bodies of 12 people who are all facing inevitable ends, and no matter who they are, he will experience their final moments. But there's one condition. If he manages to avoid death in any of these lives, he'll be allowed to keep living in that body. EJ, still numb and hopeless, says he doesn't care about survival at all. Once Death vanishes, however, the jet is rocked by a violent storm. On instinct, EJ clutches a life vest and fastens his seatbelt, while a flight attendant reassures him it's only turbulence. After a few tense minutes, the plane steadies, and the attendant leaves EJ alone again. Still disoriented, EJ looks around the cabin and quickly realizes he's inhabiting the body of someone extremely wealthy. Suddenly, a glowing pebble enters his mind, feeding him the man's memories. He learns this body belongs to the CEO of the very company he once dreamed of working for, a man who has lived a life of privilege and success. EJ discovers that Taeyu is this man's older brother, and since childhood they've competed fiercely over everything, including control of the company. Years of determination won their father's approval, and eventually, this younger brother was chosen as the new CEO. Thrilled with this lavish lifestyle, EJ decides he wants to hold on to it. But just as he settles into the thought, one of the jet's engines explodes. The aircraft begins to plummet at terrifying speed. As the plane nosedives, EJ scrambles to avoid the furniture sliding violently through the cabin before throwing himself back into his seat and strapping in. The pilot fights desperately to regain control, but it's no use. The fire spreads rapidly, tearing a gaping hole in the side of the jet. The suction rips the pilot and flight attendant out into the sky. EJ watches in horror as the flames consume the aircraft. He's engulfed by fire and meets his end once again. The next instant, EJ awakens in the bleak dark room, now transformed into a barren wasteland with a glowing door and a desk where death sits. On the desk rests a clock, ominously counting down the number of lives EJ has left. While loading bullets into her gun, Death explains, "The souls of those bodies were already gone. EJ isn't stealing their lives, only borrowing their forms." Death warns him that if he fails to survive in all 12 bodies, his soul will be dragged to the underworld. To drive the point home, she drags EJ through the glowing door, where he's confronted with unspeakable horrors beyond imagination. When she finally pulls him back out, EJ collapses in despair, unable to understand why he deserves such torment. Death coldly tells him his crime was leaving her no choice. He sought her out before his time. But she adds a small glimmer of hope. If EJ manages to survive in even one of these bodies, he could avoid damnation. Determined to try, EJ agrees, and with that, Death raises her gun and shoots him, sending him into his second borrowed life. EJ suddenly finds himself plummeting through the sky in a sports jumpsuit, without a parachute. EJ panics as he freefalls, spotting 3 other men diving alongside him with cameras strapped on. One of them grabs EJ midair to steady him, and just then the glowing pebble floods his mind with memories. He learns this body belongs to a thrill-seeker obsessed with extreme stunts, an adrenaline junkie who has already earned 4 Guinness World Records. Today's challenge? A jaw-dropping skydive from incredible heights without a parachute, aiming to land directly onto a massive safety net. The event is being broadcast live across the country, and if successful, a sponsor has promised him a staggering payout of 3 billion won. In his mind, EJ recalls the sponsor, a man idly flicking a lighter. Tempted by the fortune, EJ shoves away the helper and embraces the dive. Since the body retains the original's abilities, he feels confident, even exhilarated, as he hurtles toward the ground. But when the moment of truth comes, he misses the net completely and crashes to his death. Once more, EJ wakes in the dark chamber. Back in the dark room, EJ protests that it isn't fair. He never harmed anyone when he took his own life, so why should he be judged as a sinner? Death coldly calls him selfish, pointing out that he's blind to the pain he caused others. Without further discussion, she shoots him again, sending him into the third life. EJ wakes up as a teenager in a classroom, only to hear a classmate laughing while replaying footage of the parachute diver's death. This confirms for EJ that all these lives are unfolding in the same reality. He briefly considers lashing out, but before he can act, the glowing pebble enters his mind. He learns this boy lost his father at age 5 and was raised by his hardworking single mother. Wanting to make her proud, he endured school despite hating it, because every day Jin Sang and his crew tormented him with bullying, theft, and cruel pranks like dumping milk on him while recording the humiliation. The boy never told his mother about the torment, not wanting to add to her worries. But over time, school became unbearable. He saw it as a personal hell and his bullies as demons. Eventually, he felt so hopeless that he chose to end his own life. EJ realizes that survival here is simple. He just has to resist making that same choice. Right then, Jin Sang approaches and demands milk money before striking him. This time, EJ refuses to stay a victim. He chases Jin Sang down and smashes a chair over him. When one of Jin Sang's friends tries to intervene, EJ quickly overpowers him too, before pinning Jin Sang against a window and demanding an apology. But suddenly EJ is blindsided by Tae-suk, a much stronger student who easily overpowers him and holds him down so Jin Sang can deliver more blows. With Tae-suk restraining him, EJ is beaten down mercilessly while the rest of the class watches in fear. When the teacher finally enters, the bullies scatter back to their seats as if nothing happened. But after class, Jin Sang and his gang corner EJ once again, determined to dish out more punishment. Even Tae-suk, who's usually complicit, eventually mutters that it's gone too far, but Jin Sang doesn't care and keeps swinging. He only stops when he notices the girl he has a crush on watching from nearby, embarrassed by his cruelty. Later that day, EJ visits the boy's home and is deeply shaken when he sees photos and heartfelt notes left by the boy's mother, reminders of her love and sacrifices, which stir memories of EJ's own mom. EJ recalls how his own mother would leave dinner for him before heading to her exhausting night shifts, and how sometimes he would join her just to lighten her load. The memories nearly bring him to tears as the boy's mother warmly greets him, noticing her son seems to have better manners than usual. The next day, EJ confronts Tae-suk in the restroom, asking why someone so strong lets Jin Sang boss him around. Tae-suk admits the truth. Jin Sang is backed by a powerful senior student who runs the school from the shadows. Anyone who defies Jin Sang risks the wrath of the older gang. Later at lunch, Jin Sang once again strikes EJ, but this time EJ retaliates by dumping an entire bowl of noodles over his head. As EJ storms off, Jin Sang orders Tae-suk to chase him down, but Tae-suk refuses, saying he'd rather finish his lunch. The entire cafeteria bursts into laughter, humiliating Jin Sang further. What they don't know is that EJ had already told Tae-suk not to interfere, because he had a plan. Desperate to regain his pride, Jin Sang runs to the senior gang for backup. But when their leader hears that Jin Sang needs help beating up a nobody, he explodes with anger, calling Jin Sang a coward. He refuses to let his crew's reputation be dragged down and orders Jin Sang never to approach them again. EJ seizes the moment to taunt Jin Sang, and when Jin Sang lashes out, Tae-suk is the one who strikes him first. Humiliated and stripped of all respect, Jin Sang flees the classroom, only to discover that the girl he likes is already with the senior leader. That evening EJ goes for a jog, nearly getting hit by a truck. Distracted by the close call, EJ doesn't notice Jin Sang creeping up from behind. With a brick in hand, Jin Sang smashes him to the ground and unleashes a brutal beating until EJ's life slips away. EJ reappears in the dark chamber enraged. He screams at Death, who responds coldly, slamming him against the wall, pinning him under her foot and shooting him once more. His fourth life begins in sheer terror. EJ wakes up tied to a chair, soaked as a group of dangerous men throw water in his face. They demand to know where he's hidden a woman and some money. When he hesitates, they threaten to gouge out his eye. EJ stalls by saying he'll talk, but his memories haven't returned yet. As he begs for time, one of the men raises a hammer in warning. Just before the hammer comes down, the glowing pebble finally appears, filling EJ with the body's memories. He learns this man is part of a powerful crime syndicate that takes on fixer jobs, solving problems for clients by any means necessary, including violence. But trouble began when he fell in love with his boss's girlfriend. Tired of the abuse and danger, she wanted out and he promised to escape with her. To make that possible, he stole 10 billion won from the organization and stashed it away, but before he could reunite with her, his own crew captured him. Now, with the man's combat skills at his disposal, EJ fights back, using the chair as a weapon until it breaks apart. When a thug lunges with a knife, EJ dodges, causing the attacker to accidentally stab his partner. Shaken but relentless, EJ keeps fighting. Spotting weapons and tools along the walls, EJ kills the lights, grabs a flashlight, and uses the darkness to his advantage. A brutal battle erupts in the pitch-black room. One by one he takes them down with ruthless precision until every last man is lying dead. Realizing how skilled this body is, EJ begins to think he might finally survive one of these lives. Determined, he grabs a phone and steals a motorbike, quickly discovering that the fight had been happening inside the back of a moving truck. As he speeds through the city streets, his boss receives word that the men failed and immediately tracks EJ's phone signal. That location is broadcast to all nearby syndicate hunters, with a massive reward promised for anyone who catches him. Before long, a dangerous chase erupts on a city bridge as gunfire rains down on EJ. Bullets fly as EJ swerves through traffic, dodging each shot and using a truck for cover. When he spots an opening, he swings around behind the enemy cars and knocks a gunman off balance with his bike before tearing down the bridge like a madman. The hunter's wild gunfire misses and instead shatters other cars, causing massive pileups. Soon, the same truck that captured him earlier blocks the road ahead. Cars slam into it, sparking a fiery explosion, but EJ launches his bike straight over the wreckage, miraculously clearing it. More hunters on bikes close in, and even a police cruiser joins the pursuit as EJ barrels toward a busy intersection. With bikers closing in and more cars blocking the road ahead, EJ guns the throttle and swerves into a shopping mall. He tears through the crowded space until he reaches the center, where enemies quickly surround him. At the last moment he spots an elevator, he races inside and slams the door shut just as another bike crashes into it. The lift takes him all the way to the roof, where EJ launches himself off in a daring leap, landing straight into a rooftop pool packed with partygoers. His phone short-circuits in the water, cutting off the enemy's tracking signal. For the first time it seems like he's free. EJ then heads to appear to reunite with the woman he promised to run away with. She embraces him tightly, and EJ feels the deep love this man had for her. But just as he reveals where the stolen money is hidden, she betrays him, pulling a gun and shooting him on the spot. EJ wakes up in the dark chamber once more, this time finding Death laughing at his misfortune. But instead of despairing, EJ smirks. He never gave the woman the exact location of the money, meaning he can still retrieve it in another life. With that thought, Death pulls the trigger, sending him off again. EJ's fifth life begins inside a juvenile detention center. At first, he panics when he realizes he's locked in a tiny holding cell, but a guard soon escorts him to the main block. Along the way, other inmates glare at him menacingly, throwing a ball against the fence as a warning. Once inside his assigned cell, EJ learns he has several cellmates, and discovers he'll be released in just 4 days. But there's a catch. One of his bunkmates is rumored to be a dangerous psychopath. EJ soon sees the so-called psychopath return to the cell, and to his shock, it's none other than Jin Sang. Enraged by the memory of his previous death, EJ immediately lunges at him, beating him down until the other prisoners pull him away. Just then the glowing pebble appears, revealing this body's past. He's an MMA fighter whose family got tangled in gang troubles and needed money fast. To help them, he struck a deal, taking the blame for a hit and run in exchange for 200 million won once the case closed. Since he was still a minor, the plan was for him to get a light sentence and walk free quickly. But during the trial, tragedy struck. The victim passed away and the judge sentenced him to 2 full years behind bars. Later, when the lawyer visited him in prison, the fighter demanded a much larger payout, 2 billion, threatening to expose everything if he didn't get it. Another memory surfaces, showing Jin Sang's arrival at the facility. He tried to intimidate everyone with creepy behavior, pretending to be a psychopath to gain control. But EJ suddenly bursts out laughing. He realizes Jin Sang isn't crazy at all. He's here because he killed the bullied high school boy from EJ's previous life. EJ calls him out in front of the other inmates, slapping him repeatedly while revealing the truth. Too terrified to deny it, Jin Sang is beaten savagely by the rest of the cellmates, each one seeking revenge. When the prisoners are let out into the yard, the abuse continues. Other inmates start targeting Jin Sang too, which EJ finds deeply satisfying. Later, during carpentry class, one prisoner flicks a saw blade toward EJ. He dodges just in time, but the blade ricochets off the wall and strikes another inmate instead, leaving him badly injured. EJ shouts for help, and guards rush in to take the wounded man away. The moment the guards leave, the other prisoners close in, grabbing tools and warning EJ that the lawyer wants him silenced for good. As panic sets in, Ji-young runs out of the room, leaving EJ surrounded. But thanks to the MMA fighter's sharp instincts and combat skills, EJ unleashes a flurry of precise strikes, taking down the attackers one by one with fists, kicks, and whatever objects he can grab. Just then, Ji-young returns wielding a crowbar. To EJ's surprise, he isn't here to hurt him. Recognizing his loyalty, EJ decides to make Ji-young an ally. That night, EJ stumbles upon Jin Sang in the washroom, secretly sharpening a weapon to kill him. EJ easily overpowers him with a punch, then pauses, debating whether to end Jin Sang right there. But killing him would only mean more prison time. Instead, EJ chooses another tactic. He terrifies Jin Sang by claiming he sees the ghost of the schoolboy he murdered, sharing details only the victim would know. Shaken to his core, Jin Sang breaks down in fear, even wetting himself. EJ warns him that the boy's ghost will haunt him forever. Finally, the day of EJ's release arrives. Before leaving, he hands Jin Sang a carton of milk, claiming it was sent by the ghost, a final jab to keep him in constant fear. Outside the prison gates, the lawyer waits with the promised payout. But EJ refuses, telling him he's done with dirty deals and wants to live an honest life from now on. Sometime later, EJ makes his way to the pier and successfully retrieves the stash of money he'd hidden in his previous life, unaware that someone has been quietly tailing him. With the cash finally in hand, he's ready to start fresh. He rents a small room, lays down to rest, and dreams of his mother gently caressing his face. But when he wakes, he realizes it was only an illusion. Just then his phone rings. It's the mother of the boy whose body he's inhabiting, asking him to visit her soon. Overcome with emotion, EJ tearfully agrees. Later, at the station, he carefully splits the money into 2 bags and stores one in a locker, which will be confiscated if he doesn't return within 4 days. But before he can carry out his plans, EJ is suddenly attacked from behind, stabbed by an older man. The attacker turns out to be the grieving father of the woman killed in the hit and run. Enraged that the culprit only served 2 years because of his age, the man came seeking revenge. EJ, still bleeding, insists he isn't the one responsible. But before anything more can be said, they hear footsteps approaching and the man flees. To EJ's shock, it's Ji-young who rushes to his side. At first, it seems he's here to help, but suddenly Ji-young pulls out a knife of his own. On the day of the prison fight, he had gone searching for a weapon, planning to kill EJ for the lawyer's reward. Finding his chance now, Ji-young ignores EJ's attempts to buy him off and stabs him repeatedly. As EJ fades, the phone beside him rings. It's the boy's mother calling. EJ awakens once again in the dark chamber, where death greets him with little more than a smirk before pulling the trigger and sending him on to the next life. To his horror, his 6th life begins as a newborn baby. Crying inside a restaurant, he's carried outside by his mother, who apologizes to the other customers before taking him to her car. Once alone, her true nature emerges. She yells and vents her frustration at the baby for being a burden. Since EJ is now in the body of an infant, no memories return to guide him. Back at their home, the mother carelessly tosses him onto the couch, where the father picks him up. At first EJ thinks the man might be Kinder, but that hope vanishes quickly. The father brings over expired food, and when the baby refuses to eat, he explodes, shouting and hurling insults. At that moment, a police officer arrives with a social worker, responding to a report of possible child abuse. They attempt to examine the baby, but the father quickly interrupts, flashing his credentials. He himself is a social worker for child welfare. Embarrassed, the visitors apologize and leave, completely fooled. Enraged by the intrusion, the mother lashes out, dropping the baby onto the floor before pressing a pillow down, ending his short life. EJ returns to the dark realm, shaken, as death explains the lesson. Sometimes even infants never get a chance at life, which is why he should never take existence for granted. With no sympathy, she shoots him again. His 7th life begins outside a bustling train station. Checking the phone in his pocket, EJ notices his locker rental is about to expire. He races inside, bumping into strangers along the way, and makes it just in time to retrieve the bag of money. When he catches his reflection, EJ is startled to see his new face plastered across ads around the station. The glowing pebble fills his mind with memories. He's now a successful model, famous since high school and living in luxury thanks to his looks. Thrilled, EJ heads to his new home and finds it's nothing short of extravagant. Overjoyed at the chance to keep this life, he settles in, only to spot a newspaper that sobers him quickly. It reports that the abusive parents from his infant life have been caught for murder. It also covers the MMA fighter's death and the massive pileups from the motorbike chase, though no one knows the true cause behind them. Just then EJ receives a call from a friend inviting him to a VIP party. Tempted, he agrees and joins the celebration. Used to drinking heavily, EJ downs alcohol freely, but this model's body can't handle it, leaving him drunk far too quickly. To his surprise, he spots Taeyu at the party, now the CEO, thanks to his brother's death in the plane crash. The next morning EJ oversleeps, groaning from a brutal hangover. His brother in this life barges in to wake him up, reminding EJ of his promise to look after the cafe while he's away in the US for a week. Reluctantly, EJ takes on the responsibility. On his first day, EJ is already tempted to shut the place down as soon as his brother leaves. But everything changes when Jisoo walks through the door. EJ freezes, overwhelmed by memories of their time together, like the day they first met, when he helped her collect papers scattered by the wind. His hands tremble as he nervously serves her order, unable to hide how shaken he is. His brother explains that Jisoo is a regular. She comes in daily to write and often stays until closing. Curious, EJ searches her name online and is stunned to discover that she's now a published author. She had even won a writing contest and received a book deal. Watching the award ceremony clip, EJ realizes the envelope she once tried to give him wasn't charity at all. It was her prize money. Back then he'd misjudged her and walked away. Feeling guilty, he rushes to a bookstore and buys her novel, remembering how she always said her stories reflected her own experiences. As he reads, EJ finds passages that mirror their own memories, like the day he grew jealous of her co-worker, followed by the two of them finally exchanging "I love yous." Tears stream down EJ's face as he realizes just how much of their relationship lives on through her words. At the shop, he also spots the very pen he once promised to buy her, a fancy one he had secretly purchased and engraved with her name, only to lose it during his eviction in the rain. Later, while running the cafe, EJ sees the man he once mistook for Jisoo's lover arrive, with a woman and a little girl who calls Jisoo aunt. It finally clicks. The man is her brother. Embarrassed, EJ resolves to keep the cafe open all week just for her. The following day he greets Jisoo with a steadier hand, even offering her complimentary cake, claiming he's simply a fan of her work. To break the ice further, he pitches a story idea, about a character who encounters Lady Death and lives through multiple borrowed lives. EJ then asks Jisoo to sign his copy of her book, and he's stunned when she pulls out the engraved pen, the very one he had once bought for her. After his passing, his mother had gathered his belongings and gifted the pen to Jisoo during the funeral. Over the next few days, Jisoo continues visiting the cafe, and EJ starts joining her at the table for small conversations. Jisoo wonders aloud why the hero of his story hasn't gone to see his mother yet. EJ quietly replies that for him, it would simply be too painful. Not long after Jisoo leaves, EJ notices police cars rushing past the cafe. A customer mentions that a local regular has been caught in a terrible accident. Fearing the worst, EJ bolts down the street and breaks down when he sees blood on the pavement, forcing officers to hold him back. But then, to his relief, Jisoo appears in the crowd unharmed. She thanks him for caring so much, admitting she felt the same way when she first received the call about her boyfriend's death, collapsing in tears in the hospital lobby. The next day, Jisoo visits EJ's memorial, openly sobbing as she confesses how deeply she misses him, all while EJ secretly watches from a distance. After Jisoo leaves, EJ gathers the courage to approach his own memorial, but he suddenly bumps into his mother there. Not wanting her to recognize him, he quickly pretends he's paying respects to someone else and hurries away. He watches her lovingly clean his memorial before rushing into the restroom, where she breaks down in tears. The sight is too much for EJ to handle. He stumbles outside, overwhelmed by grief. Later, EJ pens a heartfelt letter to his mother, disguising it as if it were written by a close friend. He explains that EJ had left behind some money for her after his passing. He returns to his old home and quietly leaves both the letter and the bag of cash at the door. Overcome with emotion after seeing old family photos inside, he flees quickly. As he runs down the street, a heavy sign suddenly breaks loose above him and crashes down, instantly killing him. But then, he jolts awake to realize it was only a nightmare. The following day, after another quiet afternoon chatting with Jisoo, EJ offers to walk her home. Memories of their past strolls together rush back, filling him with emotion. Unable to hold it in any longer, EJ confesses the entire truth to her. Flashbacks show how Jisoo's co-workers used to mock her for dating a waiter, but she always stood tall, proudly introducing EJ and refusing to let anyone belittle their relationship. EJ breaks down, apologizing for abandoning her back then. Before Jisoo can respond to his heartfelt apology, tragedy strikes. A luxury car suddenly plows into them, killing Jisoo instantly. EJ, gravely injured but still conscious, lifts his head just enough to see the driver's face. It's Taeyu. In that horrifying moment, EJ realizes the truth. Taeyu is the man with the lighter, the one who has been tied to every life he's lived through. Sitting beside Taeyu in the car is the same lawyer EJ encountered in earlier lives. But the moment he spots the bodies, the lawyer bolts, abandoning the scene. Taeyu, however, calmly slips on a pair of gloves and approaches EJ, ready to finish the job. Moments later, EJ reawakens in the dark chamber once again. Consumed by rage, he lunges at death, seizing her gun and firing a shot straight into her head. That's the end of this recap. Thanks for watching. Which life do you think you could handle the best and which one would break you? If you enjoyed this story, consider liking, subscribing and leaving a comment below. See you in the next video.